Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone. And welcome back to the Snack Covenant 2023.
Oh my god!
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
I need to get more things on the soundboard. And today, on episode 310 of the Snack Covenant... That's ridiculous.
Someone's doing episode 310? If they've gotten this far, it must be very good.
We're going to talk about the Nameless Eternal City.
But Sin, what series is this?
This is actually a What, Where, Why.
It's back again for 2023! We know enough about Elden Ring now that we can do the classic What, Where, Why format.
Oh my god, Sophie! Did you see that?
No!
It's not ready yet, but it will be there when I edit it.
This is like the equivalent of making a movie where everything's on a green screen.
Yes.
And we're like pretending to react to the Hulk.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, good.
Now, Sophie.
Yes.
For anyone who's new to the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
may you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Dr. Sophie Pilbeam. It's okay, I'm not a real doctor. The kind that makes money. I did waste my entire life at school, though.
Aw, what a beautiful story.
Sin, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sin. That's not my real name, though. Thank you.
Wow, a PhD and a fake name. This is a good podcast, they're thinking. They've stopped listening now.
Okay. Now that anyone who clicked on this by accident left, let's get to it. Behold, the angelic outline.
あなたは不死身の赤ん坊ヒットマンでスキルの幅を広げようとしていますか？だったらお任せください。名門のディグニティシティ大学は瞑想、転写、倫理学の様々な科目があります。ブロケンズパイロマンチアカデミー .com で今すぐお申し込みください。さあ時間がない。今すぐお申し込みを、ベイビー。
Let's start with what? What is the name of the Nameless Eternal City in English?
The Nameless Eternal City.
What is its name in Japanese?
I don't know. I assume something similar.
Could you please describe it?
Alright, so the Nameless Eternal City is essentially just the ruins of one of the Eternal Cities. So, obviously Elden Ring is very non-linear, so it's possible this is actually the first Eternal City that you'll visit, but we'll assume that before this you've maybe been to Nokstella or Nokron, or maybe both. And you'll see that, like, okay, the architectural style is basically the same. It's the same assets, the same sort of, like, little stone, like, gazebo things are around there. The same colours on the stones, things like that. But the major differences are, firstly, that it is a complete wreck. Both the city itself, like, the architecture of the city is partially destroyed. It's, like, sunk into the ground. Parts of it have been blown off. The other difference that the city has to the others is that you're not really seeing the sort of the glinting of the dew in the sky that you see with the other two. And the sort of the silvery look and the sort of silvery dark look that those places had, you're getting instead a sort of a more dull gold look. And the reason that's happening is because, also unlike the other two Eternal Cities, there's a giant tree that has just smashed through it. So there's roots and branches that are just kind of smashing through the walls. It's completely overgrown by this massive tree, which, if you line everything up, you discover is actually the base of the Herb Tree. And the reason it's nameless, presumably, is everyone there is now dead. And they're dead in two exciting ways. Because, firstly, everyone there is dead, as in the people that used to live there aren't there anymore. There's some stone coffins and that's it. But also, the people that are there now are also dead. Because it's full of all the Prince of Death Godwyn people that have no heads. And also, I guess, Crucible Knight Solari is there.
Who?
Have you even been there?
Spiritually. Now, Sophie.
Yes.
When was it built?
A very long time ago. Basically, as far as the chronology is concerned, the Eternal Cities predate what is happening on the surface with, like, Lanedale and everywhere else. So they're, like, prehistoric. The slight confusion is over how they relate to Farum Azula, because Farum Azula, it's said to have been crumbling since the dawn of time, but it also says it was hit by a meteorite. Clearly it has to be connected to time somehow if it can have been hit by a meteorite. Like, it's clearly not actually eternal. It's something that, like, things have happened to it over time. People have visited it, like, parts of it have fallen off, people there have died. So, like, it seems to have some sort of history to it, but it's almost like a parallel dimension or something like that, Farum Azula. The reason it's specifically confusing is because there are dragonkin in the Eternal Cities. They were created as an attempt to be like the Farum Azula dragons, which puts Farum Azula as predating the Eternal Cities. But then at the same time, you have Placidusax being referred to as an Elden Lord. But then apparently there was no Elden Lord in the Eternal Cities, so it's like, did he become Elden Lord before or after this? Like, it's a bit of a mess. And I'm fairly sure, like, it's probably written somewhere. It's in George's notes somewhere. It's just not really explained the exact chronology of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the whole point is the Nameless Eternal City predates Lanedale. It predates essentially everything that's going on the surface, including the Erd Tree. The Eternal Cities predate.
Thank you, Sophie. Who built it?
Again, good question. The Eternal Cities that we find that are still populated, they are populated by these people called the Nox. We've talked a bit about before, and they're basically just humans, with the difference that their skin is this sort of somewhere between, like, stone and, like, a dark silvery metal. And it's confusingly, it's said that they bleed silver. Later on, there's people called the Night Folk. It says, like, the Night Folk are clearly, like, descended from the Nox, if you look at, like, what they look like. And it says they bleed silver. It says that they bled silver long ago. But at the same time, the Nox you fight bleed red. And it's not entirely clear if, like, is that intentional, or is that there's just, like, a setting in the game that makes everything bleed red unless it's an Albinoric when it bleeds white. But yeah, the whole point is, like, it was the Nox. The Nox built this city. The Nox have, like, you can find there's statues of Nox around. They have, like, a priesthood. They seem to worship death in a big way. And they had what we assume were their equivalent of the demigods, which we find in the form of these massive skeletons in thrones. And the reason we're saying they're probably their equivalent of the demigods is that they wore a lot of gold. Nothing else in the Eternal Cities wears gold. It's all wearing silver. Silver and white is the sort of dominant coloration. And then you find these big people in these thrones. Everyone is sort of arranged around them like they're worshipping them.
Mm-hmm.
They're clearly very important, but they are wearing gold, which is the color of the Greater Will. And we're also told that, like, there was a big sort of insurrection in the Eternal Cities where they overthrew the Greater Will. And it says the Greater Will and its vassals. And we're assuming, okay, the vassals were probably these people in the chairs. So Nokron and Noxtella, and presumably the other two, were at some point overseen by these just very, very big people in chairs. It's actually kind of like an Alien when they find the space jockey. Yeah, it's like the medieval version of that, basically.
Thank you, Sophie. What kind of economy did they have in the city?
Silver. Silver seems to be important to them, to the point where they made their own living silver that's kind of like the T-1000.
Okay, what if they tried to make mood jewelry,
Mm-hmm.
but the experimentation was gone too far? So they created the Terminator.
They attempted to make mood rings that became the Terminator.
Yes.
This is the new Terminator timeline. None of the reboots have worked. We need a new one. James Cameron's called up us. And you're just like, it's a mood ring. And this will be Terminator Jenna Snack. The franchise has been reinvigorated.
Hey everyone, my name's Trisha. I'm a fragrance consultant, and I've been asked to talk about mimic tears. So back when I was working at Sephora in Altus, this lady comes in and she's got her dog with her, and she asks me, do we have any St. Trina lilies? And I say to her, okay, St. Trina's lily is very rare, we'd have to order it in for you. When do you need it by? And she tells me that she needs them for a pilgrimage to the Halig tree, but on the way, she has to deal with this metal thing called the mimic tear, and it's stealing her look. So I tell her, okay, prove you're better, try your own metallics. Try lavender with a metallic finish. If you want something a little more sparkly, maybe try a frost finish. But my most important piece of advice to her, and anyone else who has to deal with mimic tears, is to remember that what really makes the look is you.
Let's go back to the building of the city.
Okay.
Which materials were used?
Stones.
Just stones?
Presumably lots of silver.
Like
I was saying, the difference is you see those assets used in the Eternal Cities that are still quote-unquote functional.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see them in the Nameless one, and in the Nameless one they're kind of degraded. There's a lot of, the silver, the luster has gone from it.
Mm-hmm.
There's all this, it's partially submerged, it's not being cared for. And the problem is also that, the Lanedale people have kind of moved in.
Okay.
Presumably because it's where Godwyn's buried, so they've stationed, the Lanedale gargoyles. You have, the adherents of the soulless demigods all walking around. So it's a combination of, Lanedale people trying to stop you getting there, and also the people who were just obsessed with, live life within death are there as well, because Godwyn's there, so you sort of two different groups of people, both interested in Godwyn for different reasons.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, what is the humidity level?
It's actually pretty misty, and if you go into where Godwyn is, there's flies everywhere.
Oh,
Yeah,
that doesn't sound awesome.
No. There's also a lot of water, so it's probably quite humid.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, let's move on to where. Where is it located?
It's located essentially directly beneath Lanedale, in an area called the Deeproot Depths. And the reason it's called the Deeproot Depths is it is the deepest roots of the Erd Tree. There's two ways to get there. If you go there through the gargoyle bosses, you'll just reach the Eternal City, but if you go there through the bottom of the Lanedale catacombs, the subterranean shunning grounds, in order to reach it, you actually have to run along the Erd Tree's roots for quite a while. It's similar to in Dark Souls when you're descending to Ash Lake. So something that we've brought up a couple of times, I think, is that if you look at Lanedale from the air, the moat of Lanedale is not an artificially created moat. It looks like a crater. So if you go to the Nameless Eternal City, it's not in very good condition. It looks like something hit it. It looks like it's been bombed. And you can see, there's just cracks in the ground. It's not a stable place that you would build a city. If you look at, Nocron or Noxtella, yeah, there's, drops and stuff. It's not exactly going to pass, OH&S checks, but they look like parts of the city fell off, over time, because it's a very old place, it's decaying. Nameless Eternal City looks like it has been bombed. It's completely flattened. And there's massive parts of the ground that just look like they've been torn out. It's you find parts of it, and they're, partially submerged in water that is on the edge of a waterfall, and it's, falling off. That's not a place you would build a city. The other thing you find there that we've talked about is you find the Erd Tree roots, and they are completely wrecking the place. You can find in Lanedale, yes, there are parts of the Erd Tree that are growing down, and they're kind of pushing through the pavement. Particularly the one you take up to fight Godfrey. But it's nothing like the state that the Nameless Eternal City is in. That place, it looks like literally the roots have just shot through and just crushed everything. They're just bursting through the walls. It is completely overgrown. The other thing we've talked about with regard to, like, Altus looks like it was hit by something, is that the rocks around Altus, they have these, like, seams of gold running through them.
Did you just say the rocks? Did you mean the Dwayne Johnsons? It's another thing that's on the soundboard now.
Good. So, the rocks in Altus...
Can you smell?
You can probably smell Godwyn from there, honestly. Like, he looks putrid. The rocks in Altus have all this, like, gold that's, like, streaking through them. Right. So we've got big impact crater, gold everywhere, and also the base of the Erd Tree. Right. So, one of the things that we find, not technically in the Nameless Eternal City, but on the way to it, is an incantation called Elden Stars, which we've referenced a few times, which is one of the few pieces of information you get that talks about the Elden Beast. And it says specifically, it is the most ancient incantation that has derived from the Erd Tree, as in, like, it's the first thing associated with the Erd Tree, is the Elden Stars. And what the Elden Stars is it literally creates a ton of, like, shooting gold stars, right? And what it says is, a long time ago, the Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast to the lands between, and that's what became the Elden Ring. So we have big crater, golden stars, Greater Will sent this stuff, and that's where the Erd Tree grows. And that's also where, like, Lanedale is built. So, what's happened is, the Greater Will has sent the Elden Star. It's gone smash into the ground where Altus is now. It's burst through it. It's fallen down and it's wrecked the Nameless Eternal City. Like, presumably that was a proper place at one point. It was thriving, then this enormous golden shooting star hits it and just levels it. Then, some indeterminate amount of time later, Marika fashions that into the Erd Tree. The other thing I just want to point out now is, like, I was going over the Japanese script a little bit with Alistair, who we had on a couple of times, and we were interested actually in looking at the distinction that it's using to describe different things that hits the lands between from space. And it says it makes a distinction between meteorite and shooting star, and it does specify Farum Azula was hit with a meteorite, but Nameless Eternal City was hit by a shooting star, which suggests that they are two distinct events. So, Farum Azula being shattered to pieces by a meteorite probably happened, like... It's probably not the same event that blew the hole in Altus.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, let's move on to why.
Mm-hmm.
Why was the Nameless Eternal City built?
A bunch of underground goths wanted somewhere to live, I guess.
What is the city's current purpose?
It's a hangout for people with no heads. And it's also an impromptu mausoleum for Marika's firstborn.
Lennon?
No, he's in much worse shape than Lennon, to be honest. I think if they'd got Lennon's embalming crew on it, would have worked maybe a little better, but he's putrid.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Lennon looked okay last time I saw him.
Lennon is showing up on this podcast way more than I was ever expecting.
Who occupied it, utilized it before?
Presumably the Nox.
Who occupies, utilizes it now?
Okay, we've got a number of people have moved in since, number of tenants.
Okay.
We've got a bunch of headless people who worship headless people in mausoleums.
You know when I hear mausoleum, you know what I think. Guess, Sophie, guess. Guess, Sophie. Sophie, guess.
We've got Godwyn. He's not doing good. I guess, like, asterisk, we also have a dragon that exists in Godwyn's dream.
What?
I mean, we can do it in the next Elden Ring stream if you want.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
We've got Fia and the D's. A lot of Basilisks. We've got Crucible Knight Siluria. a bunch of the vomiting Lanedale gargoyles. There's also a bear. There's 2 bears.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, the last question. If the location has no name, make a name up for it at the end of the episode.
It's called the Nameless Eternal City.
Let's think about this logically.
Okay,
We have an eternal city that's named Nokron,
correct.
and another one that's named Noxtella.
Yes.
So what would this one be called?
Nocton, Ohio.
Sophie, do the outro.
That was the Snack Covenant episode. What episode was it?
310.
310.
What, where, why, the Nameless Eternal City? Sin, if people want to find a nameless city for themselves, where can they go?
They can go to the Arabian Desert, Sophie.
That's a reference to H.P. Lovecraft's The Nameless City. It's not just like us making fun of the Arabian Desert.
No.
It's actually I guess it's Lovecraft's making. Should we stop referencing Lovecraft? It's a minefield.
Yeah, let's keep referencing Lennon.
Can we reference someone who's not problematic, like Rob Zombie?
It's the year 2023 of the Snack Covenant.
55 minutes long is the time now. Subtract the current runtime of this from that, and you'll have a rough idea of what was cut out. I'm hoping this doesn't exceed half an hour.
Well, thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
Thank you, cultists. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And see y'all next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year from Malekith the Black Blade.
Ciao, Sue.
Ciao, Sue.
Jiaosu from Malekith the Black Blade.
Jiaosu, chosen undead.
Maybe Marika is Radagon, but also she's an ant shapeshifter.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
It's in Roger's notes. I forgot his name.
Rogier.
No, the guy who wrote Elden Ring.
Roger. George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
George Roger Martin.
Yes.
That's how they got him to do it, because every time he picks up the phone he says Roger, which is interpreted as him agreeing. The curse of his name means he will never finish a Song of Ice and Fire, because every time someone rings him up, he immediately agrees to write whatever they were going to suggest.
Thank you, Sophie.